Hare Krishna, everyone. Danvat Pranams. Jai Srila Prabhupada. I hope you are all doing well. Welcome to this edition or this episode of Bhagavad Gita as it is Bite-Sized Talks, where every now and then we get together to read a verse from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. I read the verse, Srila Prabhupada's purport or commentary, and then I talk very briefly on it. Remember, these Bhagavad Gita presentations are not about me talking, they're about hearing from the words of Lord Krishna and from Srila Prabhupada himself. And as you know, you would have probably got the message by now. We have a very strong preference here at the Hare Krishna Project for only reading from and only distributing and only selling the original 1972 edition of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is our way of showing respect and appreciation for Prabhupada. We acknowledge there are translations and editions and versions after 1977 when Prabhupada left the planet, but it's our way of really, really showing respect and thanks and gratitude to Srila Prabhupada by reading from the last authorized version that he personally sanctioned while he was here on Earth, which is the 1972 Macmillan edition of the Bhagavad Gita. And of course, it's the most beautiful. It's very glossy and very beautiful. We also do this because I know, being a busy person myself, that we very rarely find the time, if we're honest about it, to sit down and read. Um, because life is so full of so many hectic things. So I hope that these very short bite-sized talks slash presentations are useful to you who's living a busy life. Okay. Some of you are watching this on Facebook and some of you will watch this on YouTube. The YouTube version is in the Bhagavad Gita as it is Bite-Sized Talks playlist. So you can see the previous 14 talks that we've done over the last year as well. I cannot believe we've been doing this for well over a year now. Time flies so quickly. We're reading this time from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 15, verse 8. Okay, so and I always I always, or most of the time, give a very brief introduction to the Bhagavad Gita when we start. I mean, I wasn't going to this time, but I suppose I could. Just the very basic, the Bhagavad Gita as it is. The Bhagavad Gita is a conversation. The Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between Lord Krishna, God himself, and his dearmost friend and disciple Arjuna. And they're having a conversation about all the things that we might be questioning ourselves. You know, what's the meaning of life? What is the nature of the soul? Why am I here? What is my relationship with the divine? Questions that 5,000 years later, after this conversation took place, that we still have today, which is why the Bhagavad Gita is still so relevant and so important. So Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 8. It's a nice short verse, actually. I don't mind reading longer ones, but it's a nice short one. So Lord Krishna says, the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. And this is the purport or commentary provided by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Here the living entity is described as Ishvara, the control of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him onto the next type of body. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or a dog, he is sure to change to a cat or a dog's body. And if he has fixed his consciousness on godly qualities, he will change into the form of a demigod. And if he is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world and will associate with Krishna. Doesn't that sound wonderful? It is a false claim that after the annihilation of the body, everything is finished. The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body, which carries the conception of the next body, develops another body in the next life. This process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in the body, we all struggle, is called karsati, or struggle for existence. Our present position and condition now, the position and the condition that we find ourselves in now, is because of our past lives. Let me say that again. Everything we're going through now, the condition that we find ourselves in, the position that we find ourselves in, it's all because of our past life or past lives. We have always existed and we always will exist. One of the things we do, and I mention this often on these talks at the Hare Krishna Project, is our team visits schools. We visit schools around the UK to distribute the original copy of the Bhagavad Gita, but also to give talks about Krishna consciousness, presenting Krishna consciousness as a spiritual science, and really trying to illustrate to young people, mostly teenagers, but some younger children as well, what Krishna consciousness is. And the very first thing that I try to explain in a very simple way is that we are not the body. The body isn't who we really are. Actually, there's an expression, isn't there, in society that most philosophies and most religions would say is that we are having a spiritual experience. Isn't this a wonderful spiritual experience? And I point out to the school children, the young people that we meet, the perception of that in the Krishna consciousness movement is quite different. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. We have always existed and we always will exist. The condition and the position that we find ourselves in right now, it is based on our past lives. When we look back at Srila Prabhupada's earthly mission, his ministry, bit of a Christian word, his ministry in the 1960s and 1970s, he sacrificed so much. He experienced so many austerities to spread this Krishna consciousness message around the world. He really wanted to show us heathens, us sinners, us Westerners, that all we needed to do was to add Krishna to our lives. Read from Sastra, chant Hare Krishna mantra. He taught us and he showed us that the essence of all Vedic literature is Krishna saying, always think of me. The essence, I'll say that again, the essence of all Vedic literature is Krishna saying, always think of me. That is the challenge for us all. And that's what Prabhupada came to the West to encourage us to do on a daily basis. Always think of Krishna. To be less self-conscious and more Krishna conscious. And that's not easy. I get it. There are so many disturbances, so many distractions, so many things going on in the world, in our community, in our society, on the news, in the newspaper, in our families, in our community groups that we may or may not be a part of. There are so many distractions, things that cause us to forget about Krishna, to forget about God. But Prabhupada encourages us time and time again to always think of Krishna. That is the essence of all Vedic literature and the essence of the Krishna consciousness movement. We're reminded in this purport that what we think of at the time of death, we become. If we're thinking of a dog or a cat, we'll come back as a dog or a cat. If we're thinking of a beautiful woman, we might come back as a beautiful woman. If we're thinking of Krishna, we have the opportunity to go and be with Krishna. The position and the condition that we find ourselves in right now is based on previous life and previous lives. We can, through our own free will, and we can, through our own ability to make decisions for ourselves, make that choice to think of Krishna, to take to Krishna consciousness, to read Prabhupada's books, to read from Sastra, to set up altars in our homes, to chant the Hare Krishna mantra on a daily basis. We can make the decisions to do those things now. So our future life or lives will be focused on Krishna, dependent on Krishna, and full of Krishna. I'm going to read this again. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 8. Lord Krishna says to his dearmost disciple and friend Arjuna, the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions from conceptions of life, from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.